welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to do a thigh-high sock. Oh my god, I had a complete brain fart just then. So I'm going to show you guys how I do my crochet thigh-high sock. This pattern is like a rotating, alternating pattern. It's super easy. Once we get the pattern down, you're going to repeat it for so many times, it just is going to go by so fast. But I have put the instructions on the screen. If you have a hard time reading crochet patterns, try to follow along with my voice as I instruct you through this piece. I'm going to be using Red Heart yarn size 4 with a 5.5 size hook. And I'm using my crochet ring to help me out here. Here are the abbreviations of the crochet terms. You can pause to read if you need to. But I have everything slowed down so that way you have plenty of time to read all the directions in the video. So we're going to start with the slip knot. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain 14 in a row. Now this is going to fit a size small to, I would say, large, maybe even extra large. It all depends on the size of your actual thigh, like the circumference of your thigh. But this one fits a huge range because it is super stretchy. So I would stick with this one unless you have a foot bigger than a size 10 or anything bigger than a size, I will say 1X. This is going to be the right amount of chains to start with. We're going to do 14 because we're going to skip the first 4. So really your first row is going to be a chain of 10. So I'm going to chain 14 here. And then we're going to skip and go into the 4th chain. We're going to start there with our first double crochet. And then we're going to place 1 double crochet in every single stitch until we get to the very last chain. Once you get to the last chain, you're going to put 4 double crochets in that one chain. And then you're going to go ahead and do a double crochet in each stitch on the opposite side, so that way you'll have your double crochet on both sides of the chain. Once you get to the end of the chain on the opposite side, we're going to put 2 double crochets to finish, and then we'll slip stitch into the very first chain to complete our foot or our toe box. So go ahead and watch this first row get started, and then I will come back and help you through the next step. So now we have our toe box completed. I'm gonna go ahead and slip stitch into that very first chain that we started with to close off this row, and then we're gonna chain 2 to start the next row. And your next 4 rows are just going to be a simple single crochet. So now we're going to do 4 rows of single crochet to lengthen our toe box. Now this is just for the portion where your toes are going to be at, so that way your toes cannot poke through. This is going to create a nice solid base with no holes in it. So make sure you do this part. You could do it shorter if you don't want to cover that much of your toes up, but I think 4 rows looks pretty much like a normal sock. So I like to do 4 rows of the single crochet right here all the way around. And once we get into our last row of the single crochet, then we will go ahead and start our pattern. Once we have our toe box finished, now we're going to start row 1 by doing 3 chains. So we're going to chain up 3. This is going to count as our very first double crochet. And then we're going to go with 2 more double crochets next. And this is going to be the rotating pattern. So we're going to do, technically this is going to be 3 double crochets. At the end of your last double crochet, you're going to chain 2. So chaining 2 after each stitch is how we're going to do in between each stitch right now. So we're going to do our last double crochet, chain 2. You're going to skip the next stitch and then do a single crochet in that next stitch, and then chain 2, repeat, skip stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, and then chain 2. Now we're going to double crochet for the next 3 stitches. So 3 double crochets. And then at the end of that last double crochet, we're going to chain 2. And we're going to repeat the single crochet pattern 3 times this time. So we're going to chain 2 after our last double crochet, skip 1 stitch, and then single crochet into the next, and then chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next, and then chain up 2. And then we're going to do it one last time. You're going to do your single crochet and skip a stitch, do the single crochet, and then chain up 2. And then we're going to do 3 more double crochets. So skip the next stitch and do 3 more double crochets. And then at the end of your last double crochet, we're going to chain 2, skip that next stitch, and repeat the single crochet pattern 3 more times. So chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in that next stitch, then chain 2. Make sure you skip the next stitch. Here I didn't do enough chain, so I'm going to take it out. So chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, skip a stitch, single crochet in the next stitch. I was just counting to see how many I had left, because if you have more, we're just going to repeat the pattern. But being that I was running into the beginning of my row, I was just counting to make sure. So I'm going to do 1 more single crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to connect that into our very first chain to complete this row. So that was row 1. Now every row we're going to do the same pattern, but we're going to alternate by skipping that very first stitch, and that's going to help it turn as it goes around the leg. So now we're going to complete the row, chain up 3, make sure you skip that first double crochet. So double crochet into the next one right there, and then double crochet into the first gap where we did our first chain on the first row. So you're going to watch me do it here. 1 double crochet into that first one, then double crochet into that gap, and then chain 2. And then we're going to start the cycle again. We're going to skip a stitch, single crochet. Make sure you're stitching in the middle of those gaps. That's going to be skipping a stitch. So you're basically going to skip the single crochet and grab in between. So that way you're creating that alternated pattern. Once we get to the point where we're getting ready to start our double crochets, always skip that first double crochet to get that alternating pattern. And we're going to do this same pattern until we get to row 32. Once we get up to row 32, that's when we're going to start doing our increases. So we're just going to continue to do the same alternating pattern of double crochets, the chain, and the single crochets until we get to row 32. . once we get to about 10-15 rows or so, it should look like this. So you see how it's starting to rotate, and it's going to do that automatically as long as you continue to do the every other stitch thing as you did on row 1, and making sure you're alternating the pattern. You'll start to see that pattern form. And again, we are literally just going to continue the same exact pattern all the way around until we get up to row 32, and that's where we're going to do our increases. And it's super easy to make this in any size, but like I said, this one is going to be suitable for average size to about size 10 foot, and maybe a 1X on the leg, maybe about 25 inches circumference on the thighs, I should say, instead of the legs. So this is gonna fit a pretty wide range of people with the amount of stitches that we're gonna add. But once we get up to the top, adding is going to be customized to size. So if you need to add more than I've added in the video, please make sure you are trying on your sock as you go up the leg, just to gauge if you need to add more a little earlier, if you feel like specifically for yourself, or if you're doing a bigger size for the client. Make sure you are gauging each row according to the actual size needed. And once we start increasing, we're just going to add chains, add more stitches, things like that, which is going to help it get bigger as we go up the leg. But if you need to start doing it a little bit earlier, you can. If you are a beginner crocheter, you can go ahead and skip to the end of the video to see how we increase if you feel like you need to start increasing earlier. That way you can see how we're going to add that into our sock. So finally we are at row 32. And this is the second sock. I already finished the first one, so don't mind the color change. So now we're going to go ahead and start our increases. So I'm still going to do the same chain up 3 to start my row. I'm still going to do 2 double crochets, but here I'm going to add 1 additional double crochet. So I'm going to add that 1 additional double crochet right next to the first one, and then I'm going to chain 3 up, and I'm also going to start increasing in the chains as well. So here I'm going to chain 3 in between now instead of just doing the chain 2. And even some, I'm going to start chaining 4 and 5 when we get up higher in the thighs. So that's going to give you bigger gaps. It's going to give you more stretch. I only increase the double crochets on the top of the very beginning double crochets on my row. But if you want to get fancy, you can always add additional double crochets to the inner part of the leg as well. It's just going to change the pattern up a little bit. But I find that it works just fine to size up by adding the additional chains between each single crochet. So as you can see now, we're going to chain 3 and 4 instead of just chaining 2. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, skip stitch, and then I'm going to repeat that, okay? And I'm doing my double crochets here. So that's just how we're going to do the increase. Super easy. Add as many chains as you need to. If you are doing this customized for yourself and you want to do a much bigger size, instead of adding 4 or 5 chains in between each single crochet, go ahead and add 6 or 7, and then add an extra double crochet into your first one as well. So that's just going to make it increase as we go all the way around. And as you can see, instead of chaining up 3, now I'm chaining up 5, so that way I have a much bigger gap here. And then we're just going to start double crocheting into each of those ones that we added on, and I'm going to repeat that for a few rows, and then I'm just going to add more chain as I go up until we hit row 50, which is going to be the last row of the pattern. Now we are on about row 36. I went up 4 rows since I did my increase, and now I'm going to go ahead and do one last increase of the double crochet. This is the last time I increase my double crochets, so now I'm going to have 4 double crochets right in the beginning of my rows, and then everything else is going to be the same except for the chain parts. Now I'm going to start doing 4 and 5 in the middles of each single crochet to help add that extra room as the width increases around the thigh. And again, if you are doing it custom for yourself, this is the part that you want to make sure you are trying on the sock as you move up the leg, so that way you can adjust the gauge if needed and add more chains or take away chains as needed. But as I mentioned, we are going to go ahead and continue the same pattern that we're doing all the way until we get to row number 50. Once we get to row number 50, we're just going to do 2 additional rows of all double crochet around the top to complete the rim, and then just chain stitch a regular long cord for however long you want, which is going to be our drawstring, to loop through the sock and help them stay up on your leg. So don't forget to do your drawstrings. Once you complete all total, you're going to have 2 rows of double crochet, 50 rows of the pattern, 4 rows of single crochet, and 1 row of double crochet, which was the very beginning. And that is going to be all of the rows for the entire thigh sock. If you want them to be longer, you can go up to 60 rows. So they can go all the way up to like the middle of your thigh. That's fine. Just make sure you guys are trying it on, or you have the measurements of the circumference of the thigh you are making them for, so that way you know how to increase it according to the size that you're making to make sure it fits. But keep in mind, these are really stretchy, so that way you don't make them too big. And I'm gonna go ahead and let you watch the rest of me do a few rows and see the finished product in the end. If you guys have any questions or any patterns that you'd like me to go over on my channel, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.